All right, welcome to First in Pod. Super Bowl week is about to get underway, and our next podcast will be our full-blown Super Bowl preview with Pat down in New Orleans for the big game. So this is a tweener. This is in between. Pat leaves for New Orleans Monday. By the time you listen to this, he'll probably airborne and on his way there to the Big Easy. Remember, guys, the easiest way to listen to this podcast is by subscribing. Doesn't matter what platform it's on, whether it's iTunes, Apple, you name it. It all counts the same. It'll get dropped right into your feed. Subscribe to that and then rate and review it. And that also helps us get the word out of what we're doing. Regular football talk here with an all-pro and a fan like me. We're going to do coach rankings, coach hire rankings here. We've had 6 hires. The Saints, we pretty much know who they're going to hire. So I'm almost going to act like the person that we all believe is going to get the job is the one who's going to get it. So we'll do that here in a few minutes. I thought
there was 7 guys hired, Pony. Well, it got Dallas, right?
Yeah, so 6 coaches have been hired, and then the 7th is the Saints, and it's not official, but we pretty much know who it's going to be.
Yeah.
Before we do that, though, Pat, everybody woke up Sunday morning to the biggest trade in NBA history. Luka Doncic goes from the Mavericks to the Lakers for Anthony Davis. There was no sign it was going to happen, no clue, nothing that braced people for it. It was just a shock to everybody's system. And from our perspective in football, the thing that I have seen on social media the most is this kind of thing doesn't happen in the NFL. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I don't know why you don't see massive trades, right before, the deadline or whatever, end season, massive trades like that. I don't know what the real reason is behind that. That's
off-season trades. I mean, we had Stafford for Goff at this time a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That was in between the Pro Bowl and the Super Bowl, and that was a huge one because that caught people off guard too. And you never see quarterback swap 2 number 1 overall picks. So that was a gigantic one.
That was, but yeah, it's just very rare that you see like big time trades happen. Like you see acquisitions and free agency, obviously, because now someone is, their contract is up. Now it's basically a bidding war now.
Or you might see a big name get traded, but it's not for another big name. It's for picks.
Right. Or then when you do see it, it's almost like they're in like year 7, year 8.
Yeah, they're not in their prime with Luka Doncic.
Exactly.
So the best I could do, I came up with 3 here. I've got Stafford for Goff. When you were in school and when I was in high school, Clinton Portis got traded for Champ Bailey.
I remember that.
Because Portis was a great rusher at the time with the Redskins. Actually, flip it, right? Portis was in Denver and had been part of
he was in Denver.
Great legacy of running backs. Terrell Davis, Mike Anderson, and those guys were all big rushers. And Bailey was a shutdown corner in Washington. They got flipped. And Bailey ended up helping Denver get to an AFC championship game. And the other one, and this is not player for player, but just the magnitude of the Herschel Walker trade, where basically Minnesota gave up all of its picks for Herschel Walker when he was in Dallas in the prime of his career and basically set up and helped Dallas win their 3 Super Bowls in the 90s with that trade.
That was a massive one.
And you're a Lakers fan. I didn't even know that about you. So you've got to be feeling a certain way about this deal.
So I'm going to rephrase that. I haven't, I root for the Lakers because I always been a
Kobe guy. Oh, Kobe guy. You're a Kobe guy.
I'm a Kobe Bean Bryant guy to the core. So I've been, cheering for the Lakers ever since '97. So I've been through the ups and downs with the Showtime LA Lakers, but yeah, I wasn't. This was definitely a shock. I wasn't expecting this because I've been hearing, rumors and rumblings about us possibly going after Chris Paul. Then that did not end up happening. And then when I saw the Luka trade, I was like, man, hold on, let me make sure this is real, because I didn't see it from a reliable source on Instagram. So then when I went on when my boy Adam Scheffler posted, I was like, oh yeah, it's real. I said Adam
Schefter said the
does.
NFL equivalent would be if the Ravens traded Lamar Jackson to the Bengals for Joe Burrow. And I disagree with that. And Spence and I were talking about this before we came on the air, because both of those guys are in the prime of their careers. Anthony
Right.
Davis is 31. I'm not saying Anthony Davis is a has-been or washed up dude, but he's had a lot of injuries. And if I had to guess, you're a golfer, I would say he's on the 13th hole right now.
Right.
I mean, he's on the back nine. He doesn't see the clubhouse yet, but he's getting there.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
Luka's supposed to be, I mean, he had the Mavericks in the finals last year. So
he's another guy that's injury prone guy too, but he's on the front nine.
it would almost be like if Allen, Burrow, see, I like what Spence just texted in. Someone said it would be like trading Jamar Chase for Mike Evans in a second-round pick. Kind of, that is not all that dissimilar. You'd have to pick a guy that's like Burrow, Jackson, Allen, Mahomes in the prime of their career, and the quarterback that's going the other way is a guy that's in his 30s. I mean, and we just don't see trades like that in this sport.
No, and you probably not going to see trades like that in this sport. Sorry, because it's just something that Pony, you've been covering this game for a long time. It has to make sense for both sides, right? And if they feel like if the guy who they're getting is not going to benefit their team kind of semi in the long run, they don't want to have anything to do with it. So, in this day and age, especially in the NFL, teams want young guys. They don't want no guys that's past year 8, year 7. You know what I mean? So unless it's a quarterback, so that's the only time you'll probably see a major trade or a blockbuster trade like that happen. But as far as a position for position, it's almost I can put it in this rim, or being like you just had, like the Clinton Porters and the Jamar Chase. We can say almost something like a Patrick Surtain for Jamar Chase. That's damn near player for player. Both players are all pro. Both players, Triple Crown winner. The other one is up for Defensive Player of the Year. Like that can be something that can be feasible, but that is something that would never happen. You know what I mean? So
I thought you were going to get traded like a million times in your career. When that was going on with you, did you hear that? Like, did that take me through what it's like when you are the constant subject of trade rumors?
So when I was, going through, those rumors or whatnot, from my understanding, my agent was just communicating back to me that teams were, wanting to give up certain draft picks, and Steve Kimes, at the time, the general manager there, shut down, pretty much all of those offers. So from my understanding, that it didn't go very far. You know what I mean? So, and at the end of the day, that is what it is. But it wasn't. Did the
GM ever sit you down and say, "Hey, Pat, this is bullshit"? Did it even ever get to that?
I mean, Steve just told me, he was like, "Nah, we're not we're not trading you." You know what I mean? Just basically a very upfront conversation, was basically saying that we're not getting rid of you. We feel like you're, a cornerstone or a key piece to our organization. So I know that, everything is not, well right now, but we feel like you can be that guy that can help not only get some guys here, but also help us, turn a corner.
I'm just picturing that phone call because of what you just said. Hey, Dallas, hey, LA, Rob Pelinka, this is Dallas. We want Anthony Davis. Sorry, he isn't available. Wait, before you hang up, we trade you Luka Doncic. And then suddenly a guy went from unavailable to on the next.
But wait, but then did you see the reports that came out that the Dallas general manager, he wasn't planning on shopping. Well, he did not shop Luka to any other team but the Lakers.
That's why, I don't cover and follow the NBA the way that I care about football. The extent of my NBA watching is basically once the playoffs start till when the playoffs end.
Mantra.
Okay? Like, certain things will get on my radar, big things like this. How can you not be a conspiracy theorist about how this trade happened? It's the Lakers, it's LeBron's team. The guy that runs the Mavericks is a former Nike executive. It's the day before the entire world starts thinking about football, and you're going to be in New Orleans tomorrow. I've been on Radio Row. It's going to be weird because all the shows there are going to want to talk about this NBA trade and not the football game. I was in Phoenix when Kevin Durant got traded to the Suns. We were at the Super Bowl, and the whole world stopped for a day, and people shifted their focus to basketball. And so from a timing standpoint, Adam Silver right now is doing backflips and cartwheels because his league just stole all the attention from that. Goodell's probably leaving them hate-filled text messages right now saying "F you" for this, for trying to steal.
Really. I mean, I see where you're coming from, but the NBA need all the viewership they need.
No doubt. But I'm saying that's why my conspiracy theorist hat, the tinfoil hat, goes on when I see something like this happen.
Yeah, I can see that theory.
What are you doing not shopping the guy? That's a fireable offense right there. You offer him to one team?
But at the end of the day, I don't really watch Dallas team. I feel like they have enough big men on their team. I don't know how Luka is going to make – I'm not Luka. Anthony Davis is going to make their team better because now maybe it frees up Kyrie Irving a little bit more.
I actually thought those guys played well together in the playoffs last year.
I thought so too. But maybe then it maybe give Klay Thompson a couple more shots. I don't know what the thought process was behind this. It's going to be very interesting to see how it works out.
Well, to Spence's point, it sounds like the thought process was they're nervous about Luka Doncic's conditioning and will to win, supposedly. They're already throwing things out there like the guy's 270 pounds.
Yeah.
Christ almighty.
Yeah.
270, you could add me and Spence up and we might not get to 270. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Zion Williams weight right there, ain't it?
All right. Let's get to our head coach hire rankings. So we'll go 7-1. I have the Saints and Kellen Moore last here. And the reason, and it looks like he's going to get hired once the Super Bowl is done, the Eagles offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. Now, Pat, you praised him for the way he used Hurts in the game against Washington, the way that he got him on the move and stuff and got him in rhythm. But we're talking about a guy who got let go in Dallas and the offense got better 2 years ago. And then he went to LA last year, 2023, and was Justin Herbert's offensive coordinator. Did not do a good job, got fired when Jim Harbaugh was brought in, and then was hired in Philly. So 3 teams in 3 years for him. And look, they've had a really good offense this year. But they have Saquon Barkley, the best offensive line, and 2 of the best wide receivers in the NFL. You've played against Kellen Moore offenses in Dallas. I don't know. LA, you did not play the Chargers with the Steelers that year, but nope. I don't know, man. He must have really wowed them in the interview process, or it seems to me like a lot of guys didn't want this job because the GM, Mickey Loomis, is still there. And if you know anything about the NFL, Pat, basically the Saints to start every year are like $40 million in salary cap. They need to dig out of every single year. And I think that a lot of coaches said, the heck with this, I don't want to work with this guy. Almost like what happened in Jacksonville before Balky got fired. Yeah.
I can see the New Orleans Saints job being number 6. Obviously, it was between that one and Brian Schottenheimer with the Dallas hire. But yeah, the New Orleans Saints are like, man, they are in salary cap graveyard. You know what I mean? And I don't know how it's going to be feasible for a head coach to come in there and turn that thing around. You know, you already have a very old team. So therefore, it's going to be, you're going to pretty much be rebuilding in the draft. You know,
well, so you got Derek Carr's contract too that you're not going to be able to get rid of, and he's still your quarterback.
There you go. So now you don't even have a quarterback. And Spencer Rattler is not. He's not the guy. I mean, unless you can put a system around him, and I think Kellen Moore, his offense will be able to marry up to a Spencer Rattler on what the things he's able to do. And
Oh, I
that's
get
out.
what you're saying. Like in theory, like his style of play. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yes, like with what he's able to do with the football. Like he's not the best passer in the game, but he can get you in the RPO because that's something that he came from. That's something that he did at Oklahoma and South Carolina. So I can see, if they wanted to, turn the page from Derek Carr and go with the Spencer Rattler and bring in Kellen Moore, I can see how that could possibly work. But for the most part, it's I think it's just going to be something. It's a job that's like you're literally. It's an uphill battle the entire year or the entire time that you're going to be there because you're going to be basing your team off of young guys, your draft picks. It's going to be tough for you to bring any, quality free agency in there. So then, therefore, you're going to be relying on the draft and also older free agency. And we all know that the league don't like older guys. So it's going to be an uphill battle, man. Whoever get that job, like you said, is already probably leaning towards Kellen Moore. But if he do end up getting that job, man, I wish him the best of luck because he has pretty much nothing to work with. I don't know what defensive coordinator he's going to get because now he getting the bad luck of the draw of being the last head coach hired. For the most part, every coach already have their offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special team coordinator pretty much hired. So now you're going to be going around asking permission to guys who's not in that coaching pool to permission to interview other guys. So like it's just going to be a very, very tough battle for Kellen Moore when he do receive this job because he's just so far behind the eight ball, right now as a first time head coach.
It's a poorly run team. It's a team that I think tries to do what the Steelers do, but they're not even as good at it. The Steelers never try to rebuild. They always try to go 9-8 and 10-7 every year. And I think the Saints are the same way where they're not willing to basically take a step back to take 2 steps forward. If they were smart, like you just said, what I would do is I would just take the huge cap hit, trade Derek Carr to a team that needs a quarterback and wants to win now. I don't even care what draft picks I get back. Just basically get the contract off the books, play Spencer Rattler for a year, go 3-14, and then draft Arch Manning. That's what I would do if I were them. But they won't because Mickey Loomis there tries to go 9-8 and win the NFC South every year. They'll probably go 7-10 and they'll be right back picking 9th or 10th next year. All right, 6th, I had to go with the Cowboys and Brian Schottenheimer.
That's why I had him there as well.
Pat, it's like in all the times we talked about Mike McCarthy being a lame duck and getting blown out of there, we should have thought something like this might happen. Not necessarily Brian Schottenheimer by name, but this is other than McCarthy was a deviation from Jerry Jones post Jimmy Johnson 30 years ago. He's done a lot of this where he's promoted guys on his coaching staff who are replacing coaches that got fired. So Wade Phillips got fired and Jason Garrett, his coordinator, got promoted to be the head coach. Dave Campo back in the day was a defensive backs coach for Jimmy Johnson, and he got promoted years later to be the head coach. There had no business being a head coach. Brian Schottenheimer's dad was an excellent coach, never won big games, but was an excellent regular season coach. Brian Schottenheimer's been around the NFL for 30 years. He's never been considered really, other than an interview here or there, head coach material. And you're making all these hand gestures because you know what this means is basically Jerry Jones shadow coaching the team, right?
No doubt about it. It's a classic Jerry Jones move. Like he wants guys that he can control. And that's why he went and hired Brian Schottenheimer. Like Jerry is a guy that don't want him. He don't want the spotlight taken away from him. So he want to be the guy that can have his chest all boast out and be like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. I run the team. I'm damn near coaching the team. And I want a coach that's in position that's going to not allow me to do that, but that's going to be okay with me doing that. And that's what this hire came from. Like, this is a classic Dallas Cowboy hire. This is another move that's showing the world that the Dallas Cowboys are not putting themselves in the position to win. Like you said, Brian Schottenheimer have never been considered to be a head coach. Every time I played against Brian Schottenheimer in Seattle when he was with the Rams, Cowboys, like his offense, if he was so calling the plays, it's never been impressive. And especially like now with this day and age, you want to be able to have some innovation into your offensive scheme. You want to be able to have some some dash. Like I never seen that from him. And I don't know what the difference is going to be now with him being a head coach, now with all of these different responsibilities on his plate. So now he's going to have time to really dial up plays and put guys in position to be successful. I just don't see it happening. I just think this was a Jerry Jones hire to put him in more position to control the team. Like Jerry Jones don't want any kickback or any say-so from the head coach. And that's the only reason that Jason Garrett was a head coach for God knows how long when he was there. And this is a cycle that's repeating itself right now.
Jerry Jones reminds me a lot of Al Davis when he was later in life. Al Davis, obviously, the difference there, though, is Al was a football coach. I mean, he knew the game, and he didn't just
think but he knew football. Definitely was a football player.
Yeah, I mean, football player in air quotes. I mean, he was on the team at Arkansas, okay? So, Al Davis later in life, as he got older, his grip on the team didn't soften. He didn't trust the people that worked for him to actually make decisions. One of my good friends, Bruce Gradkowski, was the quarterback there for a couple of years. And he's told stories before about how Hugh Jackson was the head coach and he knew Hugh's play calling tendencies. And he'd get a play that would come in from the sideline and he would say, "That's Al." The owner would literally call down from the owner's box and basically say, "I want like a deep shot here." And you better believe that ball needed to be hucked like 40 yards downfield to Darius Hayward Bay, even if there was double coverage. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there are these owners. He bought the team, Jerry Jones, because he wanted the power and glory that came with being an NFL owner, not like in the background, not like a Robert Kraft or a Rooney. He wanted people to look at him and say, that's the reason why they're winning. He gave the team to Jimmy Johnson, basically. They won 2 Super Bowls. He said, that was fine. Now I want to try to do it my way.
Yep.
That's his prerogative. He owns the business, Pat.
Yep.
But there's a reason why, in my opinion, they've got the longest drought now in the NFC between going to NFC championship games. Every team has been more recently than them. And this is just another example of that. All right.
More recent than them.
Yes.
I was on that team.
That's right. That's right. Actually, they've been twice because Kurt Warner's team went too.
True story.
All right. So 5. Now, this is
interesting right here. I can't wait to hear what your 5th pick is.
I'm going to say this. This hiring cycle, I like a lot of these hires. Mm-hmm. So really from this point on, it's just varying degrees of how much I like the hire. So I actually have Aaron Glenn 5.
Oh, I had him at 4.
Okay. I have Aaron Glenn here. And here's just my Cliff Notes take on it. 2 things. He's going to a team that doesn't have a quarterback, and he's a defensive-minded guy. And right now, the most important thing for the Jets is finding that franchise quarterback. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing is, Pat, is just, and hey, their defense had all kinds of injuries. But I just got frustrated. We talked about this. It's like he took the game plan from the Minnesota game and thought it was going to work against Jaden Daniels. And that's just sticking with me because he didn't make an adjustment in that moment. I didn't think he really made an adjustment in the game, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. There's an old saying, I guess, you die with your boots on, you go balls to the wall. But I mean, if it's not working, you've got to change it up. And I think to me, that's something that a head coach obviously has to do. You got to be right on your feet, and you got to be able to change who you are in games based on who the opponent is or what they've done. And that just left a sour taste in my mouth.
Yeah. Aaron Glenn, he definitely is going to have an uphill battle as well because, like you said, the uncertainty between if they're going to have Aaron Rodgers back or not. If they're not, They got to go out and find a quarterback, if that's free agency or in the draft. And it's just going to be very interesting to see how he's going to be able to bring his defense, over to the New York Giants the New York Jets, because we already know that the New York Jets, I don't know how their roster is going to be looking next year, but we know that for the most part, the New York Jets always have talent on the defensive side of the ball. Like they always, when they're, when the guys are on the football field, they're pretty much, for the most part, a top 10 unit. And I feel like Aaron Glenn will be able to, help those guys to continue to flourish throughout their NFL career. But like you said, again, the big question mark is going to come down to the offensive side of the ball. They couldn't protect Aaron last year. We don't know if Aaron's going to retire or come back. You got Devontae Adams that's going to be up in shambles. You got Garrett Wilson that's not happy ever since Devontae Adams has came over to the New York Jets. To the New York Jets. So it's so many question marks on the offensive side of the ball that needs to be answered, that's going to make this a real uphill battle and a real challenge for Aaron Glenn in his first year as a first-year head coach and going into his first year as a New York Jets head coach, because we all know what the media is going to bring. We all know if it's not going pretty good early, the big question mark is going to come on. Why did we hire this guy? Why didn't we continue to go down the same rabbit hole of hiring defensive coordinators? So there's a lot of things that's going to come with this job, especially if you don't jump off to a good foot with the New York media and being the New York Jets head coach.
We've seen corners like Aaron Glenn or defensive backs turn into good coaches. Tony Dungy's a Super Bowl winning coach. He played DB in the league. Herm Edwards was a defensive back. He was a head coach in New York with the Jets. Todd Bowles. So, I mean, you're smart enough to do it. So is it a time commitment thing? Is it a lifestyle thing? Like when you look at guys like Aaron Glenn, do you see yourself in him at all?
Not really. I don't want to be a coach. I don't, I feel like I can coach and be a head coach, at whatever level, but I don't see that being, my fulfillment of life. If I did want to be in the football world, I was thinking more like a general manager, someone that can have put on the suit and tie, that can control the team from upstairs and putting people into the position to be successful versus putting in all those man hours with the players. Like, I've done that in my career. You know what I mean? So
Spencer used to be LSU's general manager, just like Belichick hired one. How about you at LSU?
Man, LSU playing with me right now, man. Yeah, we'll talk about that another day. But
okay,
LSU playing with me right now, man. They want all this stuff done for them and want me to drop everything of a dime, and we can't get this deal done. But like I said, that's another day, man. I hope they hear this.
Number 4, I put Pete Carroll.
Pete Carroll. Well, I had Pete at 3, so our list is very close.
I like Pete. I'm just going to start with that. I'm a Pete Carroll guy, and there's obviously ageist arguments about him. Like this looks like a rebuild. They're not ready to win right now. So why hire a guy who's in his 70s to coach your team? But the thing that I like about his track record is he identified Russell Wilson as a day one starter. They took him in the 3rd round. They had given Matt Flynn all that money in Seattle. He said, the hell with this. This dude who he took in the 3rd round gives us the better chance to win right away. And they won a playoff game his rookie year and then won the Super Bowl in 2013. And then, the other controversial thing quarterback-wise that he identified was, if we trade Russell Wilson, I'm cool with Geno Smith. And I don't think there's another team in the league that looked at that from the outside and said, yeah, that'll work. That's a good idea. And Geno's been solid for them. So even though he's a defensive guy, his quarterback resume, I think, is excellent. And I think he's got the energy where dudes want to play for him.
Yeah.
I mean, you brought this up so many times about Belichick. You feel like Belichick basically aged out, where it's like, man, his coaching methods just are relics from the past. I think Pete Carroll is a young 73 or whatever he is. I think he relates to the younger player much better than Belichick.
Yeah, Pete is a very young 73. I had the opportunity to be recruited by Pete when he was at USC. Obviously, I know that was, what, 15, 16 years ago.
And he
But
looks
when
the
I
same. Dude
huh?
hasn't aged.
That's what I was about to say. Although that was 15, 16, years ago, even when I ran across him, being his foe with the Arizona Cardinals, playing the Seattle Seahawks, twice a year. Pete was always the same, man. Even just, looking at it and watching him from afar in his press conference, like you said, he haven't aged at all. That is the same Pete Carroll that I can remember meeting back in 2007, going to the USC Rising, the Trojan Rising Star Camp. You know what I mean? And I remember going to my official visit, and they was playing UCLA, if I'm not mistaken. In the team meeting room, all the guys in there, he started a damn chair pile, just throwing chairs all over the meeting room. So just
Mark
seeing.
Sanchez was up there throwing chairs at people. I don't see him with that personality getting in the mix like
Oh
that.
man, Pete was the first one to throw a chair. Once Pete started throwing chairs, next thing you know, it looked like it was a ritual. Everybody just started throwing chairs. It's just like a big ass chair pile.
Yeah.
In the conference room, after Pete is giving his press, his not his press conference, but his rah-rah speech or whatever. Next thing you know, you got a big old chair pile over here in the corner of the conference room of the guys just going ballistic for about a minute and a half. You know what I mean? So just to be around that and just hear the stories, talking to Richard, Earl and the guys, just hearing some of the things that he did at the same time in the meeting rooms when he got into the NFL. I was like, man, I remember those same things that he did when he was at USC. You know what I mean? So Pete, I thought this was a great hire. It's good to see him back in the NFL. I'm not going to question that he will not go out, that it won't be a problem for him to go out and find a quarterback, at least a veteran quarterback that he feel that can get him through this season if he's not able to draft a quarterback. But yeah, man, I love this hire, man, from attention to details, from a competitive standpoint, from that this team is going to be prepared when they step out on the football field. And then that's going to be a resemblance of the head football coach in Pete Carroll.
I think people didn't think about how Brady is one of these guys who is constantly trying to prove to people that age is just a number. So it would make sense that he would hire Carroll and not look at his age as a disqualifying thing when his whole playing career at the end was all about that, dispelling that notion. And what you just said there about Pete's personality, that's why I think Dion's going to try to do everything in his power to get Sanders to the Raiders.
Yeah.
And we talked about all the salary cap space they have, obviously the mecca that it is in terms of entertainment, but like you get Bowers, you get another wide receiver there. Their offensive line is actually pretty good. That's a place where he can have, I think, instant success. So that's why I think that's going to be something everyone needs to keep an eye on.
He's going to be in a hell of a division, boy. Jeez.
Yep. They just hired Brian Kelly, I think, to be the offensive coordinator there, right? That's a hell of a hire. All right, number 3, I've got Liam Cohen from the Jaguars, even though we did that corny Duval chant. That was about the whitest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. It was unbelievable. Somebody said on Twitter, even the University of Iowa DB's room thought that was too white. And I'm like, God damn, that's funny shit. That's really good. But look, man, I mean, we'll see if he has the temperament to be a head coach and has like the ability to, I guess relate to a 53-man roster, Pat. The numbers he put up with that Bucs offense from 2023 to 2024, they went from 20th in points to 4th. They went from 23rd in yards per game to 3rd. yards per carry, they were the worst running team in 2023. They were 32nd. They were third.
Yeah, I would say it was top 5 in rushing for sure.
And Godwin missed a ton of the season, tons. And, he had to find out who his running back was. He benched Rachaad White, who was a pretty good player, and went with Bucky Irving, a rookie. And that was another big move that had that offense take off this year. So I think the dude, he's from that McVay. He was out in LA with him. And then your boy Todd Bowles hired him, and that was a great hire to bring him there. I mean, I think he was at the University of Kentucky in between he was in college, but offensive guru. And that's the perfect guy you want to get something out of Trevor Lawrence, Pat. This is the kind of guy you hire, right?
Yeah, this is definitely the guy you hire, and it's just going to the pressure now is going to fall upon Trevor Lawrence.
I agree.
If he's going to be able to answer the bell, now being his second offensive head coach, that's coming from a whole nother system. Now, are you going to be able to flourish? Are you going to be able to be successful? Because now we're doing everything in our power to make sure we get the right play caller for you and put the right pieces around you. Because at the end of the day, they have a very talented offense as well with ATN, my LSU receiver. I don't know if Ingram is still there, tight end.
He is. So they'll have Brian Thompson, Ingram. They probably won't have Christian Kirk, but they'll have those two guys for sure.
Yeah, Christian Kirk won't be there next year. I can't imagine that he'll be there next year with the number that he's expected to make next year, and not pretty much being on the field for them this season. Last season. So they have talent. So now, like I said, the pressure is pretty much going to fall on Trevor Lawrence's shoulders for the most part. If he's going to be able to, pretty much unlock this offense now, being with his second quote unquote offensive, minded coach. You know what I mean? So, now if Trevor Lawrence is not able to be successful, now it's really going to start. It's really going to come down to is Trevor the guy for the job? Now, should we be looking elsewhere for a franchise quarterback? Because now we gave him every opportunity and chance in the book for him to be successful, and it's not working out. Now it may be time for us to look elsewhere for a pass thrower.
So one of my neighbors growing up played in the USFL for the Tampa Bay team. It was owned by Burt Reynolds, which is incredible. And Steve Spurrier was their coach, Pat. Mm-hmm. And I remember him telling me when I was, a teenager that Spurrier literally never said a word to defensive players. He just coached the offense. He had his defensive coordinator coach the defense. He made like the in-game decisions, the timeouts and everything else. And might have said a few words, before the game, halftime, post-game, whatever. But like for the most part, he just left the defense to its own devices. I mean, if Liam Cohen takes that approach in Jacksonville, he hired an assistant from Green Bay who was with Hafley there in LaFleur. If he basically is like, I'm going to stay in my lane, I'm going to call the plays on offense, and just I'm not even going to put my hands in here at all and just trust this guy to coach the defense. Is that a good thing or bad thing in your opinion?
I think it's a good thing. I think as a first-year head coach, you want to be able to hire guys who either had head coach experience or who had defensive coordinator experience. So, because as a head coach now, you're going to be a micromanager. Like you won't have enough time in the day to be able to go in there and really have your fingerprints on the offense. Because Liam Cohen is an offensive head coach. So therefore, you want to put someone in place who you can trust that can really teach the basics, have the same philosophy that you have. Therefore, you can get ready for the schedule. You can get ready for traveling. You can get ready for your meetings. You can get ready for your press conference, because now as a coordinator, like you said, coordinator, you're pretty much managing 22 guys, right? Now as a head coach, you're managing not only 53 players, but the other 4 or 5 coaches that's on the other side of the ball, and on top of having to speak for the team. You know what I mean? So there's so much that's on your plate now. So that's why I feel like first-year head coaches is very vital for them to hire guys that has either been in that position, meaning a defensive offensive coordinator position, or even being a former head coach to help guide you through this process. You know what I mean? Because I don't know how it was for you or whatever coordinator. Was he really in tune with the head coach on how he scheduled things, how he viewed things, how he saw communicating to players, how he felt it was right to do a practice schedule? All of these things matter because that speaks volume not only to your team, but it also starts to build a trust from your players and your coaches as well.
I ranked Mike Vrabel as the second best hire. Where did you put him?
I had Mike at number 1.
Number 1. All right.
Well, then, number 1, Ben at number 2.
All right. So I have Ben 1. So I'll give the floor to you. Tell me why you've Mike Vrabel number 1 on your head coach rankings.
Just because he's a coach that, out of all of these coaches, Pete Carroll is obviously a returning head coach, but he's a little bit elderly. But that's we're not holding that against him, right? But Pete Carroll don't have a quarterback on roster right now that can pretty much help him go out and be successful. And this whole year, you've been on a Drake May train. And I feel like with Mike Vrabel having a continuity of being an NFL head coach, now going back to the Patriots where he really understands the Patriots way, or how much winning is important to them. Now you're getting a guy back into the building that understands what it takes, to horse a Lombardi trophy. He has a quarterback. He's a defensive-minded coach, and he's bringing Josh McDaniels back. So he's pretty much putting the band back together. So for me, I just feel like with him having the experience already as a head coach, now having I know Drake May is a second-year guy, but I feel like now having Josh McDaniels there as an offensive coordinator, they will be able to detain him more, be able to put him in a much better position to be successful. Because at the same time, you got to look at the Patriots draft position as well. They're going to be very high. They have a little bit of money to spend to bring some guys in there.
A lot of money to spend.
Yeah, so this is a team that I feel like that can be like a Washington, Commanders that that came from last and competing for that number 1 position. You know what I mean? So Mike Vrabel.
I agree with all that. I mean,
yeah.
I'm with you, man. Like I think that they have a big time sleeper designation for next year in dark horse team. Look, he in Tennessee as a head coach went to New England, won a playoff game against Brady. That was his last playoff loss, his last game there actually. Then the next week they went to Baltimore and won in the playoffs. They had a lead in Kansas City in the AFC Championship game with Ryan Tannehill. And then they come back. They end up finishing with the best record in the AFC. He's the coach of the year. They get beat by Joe Burrow and the Bengals at home.
Yep.
So great seasons as a coach. So it's there. There's a track record. He's established himself as a guy that can do more with less. And now I think he's going to have the best quarterback of his career. Tannehill was solid. He was a top 10 pick, but not at any point considered a very good to great quarterback. And I think Dre May has the potential to do that. And he survived what we brought up a lot on the podcast during the season. Like that team was built to be maybe the worst in the NFL. And that's why I feel bad that Mayo got fired. But when you have a chance to replace him with Vrabel, it's a huge upgrade and you do it, even though the dude got a raw deal. So I agree with most everything you said. Like, I think he has a chance to be very successful there. The only reason why I put Ben Johnson 1 on my rankings is because of something else you've brought up on this podcast before, and that is the one drawback of a defensive head coach is if a defensive head coach will have to likely, if he has a really good quarterback, change offensive coordinators often because that offensive coordinator is going to keep getting hired to be a head coach somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're Kyle Shanahan or you're Sean McVay, that never, or Andy Reid, that doesn't change. You always have that system in place because you're not going anywhere.
Right.
And so I think Ben Johnson has a chance to be that next guy, is why I put him number one. I think he has a chance to be the great offensive head coach of this generation or era, the next one. I'm not as sold on Caleb Williams as I am on Drake May, actually. I would prefer Drake May. That's why if I were Ben Johnson, I would have taken the Patriots job over the Bears job. But it sounds Patriots wanted Vrabel the entire time. Okay, that's fine. In his opinion, the next best thing was the Bears gig, and I get that because Williams has, he can make all the throws. It's just a matter of whether or not you can get him, Pat, to make plays on schedule inside the confines of the offense. And I mean, the dude turned Jared Goff was a good quarterback in I want to say St. Louis. In LA, they went to a Super Bowl, but he obviously got him to another level in Detroit, and they were doing crazy things offensively with motions and stuff like that I think we'll see where it goes in Chicago. But the guy to me is not just a byproduct of having good players. I think his system made the players better in Detroit.
Yeah. My only flaw with this system would be too much trickery and
I agree with that.
Caleb Williams, especially early. Like, I feel like Jared Goff is old enough and a vet that can handle the trickery, that understands if it's not there, get rid of it. I feel like Caleb Williams is a guy that's going to, he's going to fight and fall. Say it again.
Push the envelope.
Yeah, he's going to push the envelope, and I believe that's something that's going to continue to, hurt him throughout his career. Like, if Ben Johnson is able to hone him in, really get him, get the ball out of his hand quicker, going through his progressions, because that is something that's going to make him really not be an elite quarterback, but really turn the page in his career, because we know he has the arm power. We know he has the, he can make all the throws in the book. Now it's going to come down to, if one is not there, we're going to two. If two is not there, we're going to three. Now, if it all breaks down, now we can use our athletic ability to get us out of trouble. I just feel like, for one, he don't do a good job going through his progressions. When number one is not there, now his eyes getting down, and I won't necessarily say it's a panic mode. It's almost like, what do I do now? Like, I don't know where my second progression is, so let me try to run around a little bit to get somebody open, versus having things coming back in front of his face. Like, for Patrick Mahomes, for an example, anytime Patrick Mahomes scramble, I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, there's plays coming back across his face. With Caleb Williams, everything is always breaking outward. So therefore, it's hard for him to be more, I guess, athletic as a thrower in the pocket when you got everything breaking towards the sideline, versus with a Patrick Mahomes, you got drags, you got digs, you got posts, everything that's pretty much utilizing the middle part of the field where he can be more dangerous. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Ben Johnson utilized Caleb. But I tell you what, he's definitely going to have to start with slowing the game down for him, of going through his progressions, and also understanding how important it is for him not to turn the ball over and give the other team, the opposing team, extra possessions, because 9 times out of 10, the ball game is going to come down to one possession.
Spence asked, which coach is most likely to win a Super Bowl? I would pick Vrabel from this list.
Yeah, out of those coaches, Vrabel, 100%.
And then if I had to say which one will be the quickest or fastest to be fired?
That's a good one. Looking at this list, I'll probably go Pete Carroll.
Oh, I disagree. Because I think Brady understands the continuity aspect, and stability is like much needed for that.
It's either Brady or Brian Schottenheimer. It's one of those two.
Because I'm going to say Liam Cohen, just because I think, just because, Pat, to what you said about Lawrence, I mean, if Trevor Lawrence is bad the next 2 years,
So and then that's why I think it's going to be on him. So then,
right.
therefore, they're going to give him an opportunity to draft his quarterback.
Oh, okay. I just never know with that owner. The owner's son runs like a pro wrestling league and like makes decisions on the team. It's a very screwy. And then the Jets have like a 17-year-old making their decisions. So I guess I should lump Aaron Glenn in there too, because you just never know.
I mean, you just never know. You just never know.
Hey, Pat, enjoy New Orleans. I know it's kind of quasi going home for you.
Man, I cannot wait to get to New Orleans. And my first stop is going to be Drago's tomorrow for lunch. They're going to get me some oysters. So if anybody want to see or meet me there, lunch is on me.
Pat, I got married there, and then I went back there for a 5-year anniversary. And my wife, 5 years later, just Bourbon Street hit different. Like, I've never seen someone more hungover in my entire life the following day. It was brutal. Like, everybody went out and did stuff, and she was just like in bed the entire time. So,
right. I got married there too, so we have something in common.
Did you do a second line parade?
Say it again.
Did you do a second line parade?
Of course.
We did too.
Of course. We had to do it. We had to do it up.
Hell yeah.
We had the umbrellas and all that in the building. Although being from Florida, we always thought that was bad luck. So I was like, man, why in the heck are we doing this right now?
All right, man. Pat, thanks so much. We'll talk from New Orleans. And guys, subscribe to the podcast. This is what we do. We have regular football talk. We usually do every game every week, but we're running short on games. We'll preview Chiefs Eagles, and then we'll break it down Sunday night after Super Bowl 59. Thanks for listening.